Right, we're going to talk about what our kids are being taught at schools at the moment, or at least what they're in danger of being taught. One is one dangerous topic that apparently is coming the way of our kids. Woke teaching resources promoted to schools claim that Stonehenge was built by black people. And here's another good one, that the Roman Emperor Nero married a trans woman. This has been revealed. These alarming aspects of the teaching agenda have been revealed by the Policy Exchange think tank by an investigation. Also, the union, the National Education Union, is telling its members that teachers must take the Palestinian struggle into the classrooms to teach the kids about the struggle of Palestine. Nothing about Israel or anything like that. This is all misinformation. This is propaganda. And I don't think that's what we want to talk to our kids. Let's talk to historian Rafe Heidel-Manku. Rafe, this is extremely worrying. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Stonehenge was built by people of colour, built by black people. In fact, we don't know who built it. That's the whole point of the mystery of Stonehenge. And yet we hear that a book that includes this ludicrous, made-up misinformation is being used as the backbone of a teaching course in British schools. The British kids are, as we speak, being taught that black people built Stonehenge. It's not true, is it?
No, I mean, stories like this just make you want to shake your head. As a historian, actually, I want to cry when I hear this sort of stuff, this sort of indoctrination being foisted on our children. You know, what do they mean by black? I mean, do they mean just dark-skinned people? Because there were dark-skinned people who did build Stonehenge, but they weren't sub-Saharan Africans. And when black is being used today in the way that the National Education Union and these books use the word black, they're not referring to, say, Spaniards or Portuguese or people from Tunisia or so forth, which of course, when in the 1600s even, or in the medieval period, when you talked about black people, people had no real idea or comprehension of Africans. So when they talked about swarthy black people, they were usually referring to people from Spain. Even people like Tom Jones from Wales was black, or Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights. And the people that built Stonehenge, well, it goes back to Neolithic times, but the Beaker people were dark-skinned. They're genetically close to the people from Sardinia, but they were all blue-eyed and they had swarthy skin like a Mediterranean. And those were the people that we believe built Stonehenge. But there's a world of difference between somebody from Spain or Portugal and somebody from sub-Saharan African. And this goes hand in glove, of course, with things like BBC's Horrible Histories, which in 2021 put out a song essentially saying, well, the song was called We've Always Been Here. And again, it was a black sub-Saharan African who, again, laying claim to having had a presence in this country from prehistoric times. And it's bad enough watching a dramatization of Agatha Christie to find black people in white tie or morning dress at Ascot in the 1920s, let alone in Henry VIII's time, you're suddenly seeing Anne Boleyn is black. Now, of course, this ideological subversion is taking us back to prehistoric times. It's complete nonsense. We need to understand what's happening here. Our children are being ideologically subverted and brainwashed into this new ideology, the new myths about Britain, that it's always been multicultural, that it's a nation of immigrants, and that diversity built Britain. And all three are complete nonsense.
Absolutely. And the black people building Stonehenge narrative is contained in a book that again is being pushed on British school kids. It's called Brilliant Black British History. Also, another aspect of history that's being pushed on our kids that I think we ought to worry about is that the Roman Emperor Nero married a trans woman. Where did they get that from, do you think?
Well, you see, it's a very common thing in if you look at classical history, for example, if you're going to humiliate or undermine your enemies, this is what you would say would happen. And so you often, for example, had other claims that Roman emperors were identified as being transsexual. But that attestation, that accusation of effeminacy was in many ways intended to undermine the person and to say that they were less than a man and less than masculine. Let's be clear here. What we're seeing are the ideologies of today being foisted on the past in order to advance an ideological agenda. And it's essentially to elevate minority cultures and to suggest that in some way they've always been part of our culture. And there's also a way, especially when you look at things, for example, as saying that, diversity built Britain. In fact, that, there's no reason for the British to be proud of Stonehenge or of building the Tower of London or the Houses of Parliament, that all of our achievements actually were a communal effort with other people involved. And what they're doing then is they're trying to undermine and demoralize and essentially negate any symbol, any action, any achievement which traditionally we could take pride from.
Well,
And it's the same thing as denigrating our heroes. This is all designed to essentially bring us down to a year zero, to sever the connection between us and our pride in the nation, so that these new myths can come in.
which brings me nicely to a very worrying point here. Landmark British victories such as those at Waterloo and Trafalgar, the battles of Waterloo and the Battle of Trafalgar, go largely untaught in Britain. Research by the policy think tank, Policy Exchange think tank, suggests that as few as 1 in 10 British schools include those famous British victories, those famous British battles in their curricula. That's it. So, I mean, I get the idea. Let's be a little less British-centric with our teaching of history. Let's recognise that great things happen around the world, but not teaching British kids about Waterloo and Trafalgar. That's an outrage.
I would say it's criminal, because what I like to say is a nation ignorant of history is like a man with no memory. If you don't understand how our society, how our country came to be, how our institutions evolved, how the United Kingdom assembled itself, how we got our empire, you can't really understand who we are in the current day. It's fundamentally important that our children are taught the great events and the great men of our history. And I say men because usually it was men. And unfortunately, what happens today is our children know exactly what it was like to be in a World War I trench, but they can't name you a single World War I battle. And we need to actually teach the chronological history of this country, how we evolved. And we also need to have heroes, and we need to have great achievements to celebrate, because, it's national identity that helps to keep a nation together. You get social cohesion from thinking that you are part of something bigger. And it is things like celebrating Trafalgar Day or Battle of Britain Day on September the 15th. Knowing, of course, the great struggle to get our freedoms, how we fended off dictators and so forth, helped us as a people collectively identify and come together. That's something we used to know in the past. Instead, today what we have, of course, we've turned love of nation into national self-loathing. We wear horsehair shirts and we beat ourselves about perceived injustices from the past, when actually Britain made the modern world. We have so much to celebrate about this country, and yet our children are growing up wholly ignorant. And because they're ignorant, it's so easy for them to then fall prey to the purveyors of bad history, of fake history, because they're not equipped with the knowledge to identify what's really wrong and bad, such as black people built Stonehenge.
It's an abrogation of duty by teachers on an epic scale. The last point, which feeds into the same syndrome, Rafe, that I would like to get your comment on, is the National Education Union for teachers, big union, has encouraged teachers to hold a day of action at schools on Thursday, this Thursday coming up, to highlight the Palestinian struggle for freedom. They're holding workshops as well to train members, teachers, how to advocate for Palestine in our schools. This is politics, this is propaganda, this isn't history, this isn't teaching, this is brainwashing kids towards the Palestinian, the pro-Palestinian point of view. That's all wrong, isn't it?
The National Education Union is the cancer at the heart of our education system. I've said it for many years. You know, when he was Prime Minister, David Cameron said he wanted to go to war with the unions, as Margaret Thatcher had done with the teaching unions, as Margaret Thatcher had done with the mining union. Now, he never did. But I say that's a confrontation that's long overdue because the National Education Union has called for the decolonization of our curriculum. You know, we have the most radically left-wing youth in history, and the rise of left-wing youth has mirrored the rise of left-wing teaching. And it's places like the National Education Union and the University Departments of Education, which I call them woke madrasas, that are indoctrinating well-meaning teachers who go into these university departments of education to get taught as a teacher. Then they join these unions and they're being indoctrinated with this far left radical ideology, from gender ideology, critical race theory, to what you're seeing now about Palestine and so forth. It's deeply insidious. It's damaging our children. And just think, in 20, 30, 40 years' time, the majority of people running this country will have been educated by teachers who are basically beholden to this ideology. It's madness.
It really, really is. And unfortunately, the Education Secretary is Bridget Phillipson, who is a left-wing ideologue, and she won't do anything about this. But we got problems here. Our kids are being brainwashed, everyone, as Rafe says. So give me a ring, let me know what you think. 03444991000. Rafe, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Rafe Heidelmanku, historian there, on the manipulation of our children. That's what it is. Left-wing teachers are manipulating our kids. They're brainwashing them. They're bringing them round to their left-wing way of thinking, getting them to not know about Waterloo and Trafalgar, but to be told lies like black people made Stonehenge. It's just not true. It's just unbelievable.